June 17th, 1972, Watergate. Group of 5 men break into the Watergate building in order to fix some wiretaps that they had done previously that were not working. And then they were also trying to essentially to steal documents from the Democratic National Committee. During this point, Nixon was up for re-election, and they wanted every advantage possible in that upcoming election. So as they got caught red-handed, obviously Nixon turned around and denied that he knew anything about it, that it was his election campaign people did the whole thing, and he was elected anyway by a pretty convincing victory. As he got into his presidency, it started coming out that he wasn't necessarily telling the truth and that he did have some knowledge about what was going on. And more than likely, he probably had absolute knowledge about what was going on. And when it comes to trying to wiretap and steal documentation and give him the advantage in that election that he had already won. The problem arose during the cover-up when he was trying to get out of what happened. The whistleblower Deep Throat came out, and then John Dean, who was the advisor or the counsel to the White House, also started testifying amongst many other of the White House staff that came out and started testifying in front of a grand jury. And then it came out that Nixon did have knowledge about this, and it was worse than the act itself, because now it was an actual cover-up and a point of espionage within the administration. It came out that Nixon had security tapes within the Oval Office of every conversation that he had had in there, and so those were subpoenaed by the grand jury, and then Nixon refused to give those up, and he actually started hiding them. He eventually gave a few of them up, but not all of them, and then that was the end. That was the end. He ended up resigning there shortly thereafter because he knew what was on those tapes would incriminate him, and so to just save face and not have any of that come out in public, he resigned. That is what we know as Watergate scandal, and it cost him his presidency. Now we turn and look at what's happening on now, particularly with what Tulsi Gabbard just came out with these last few days. What she is talking about is significantly bigger than Watergate could have ever been. She's talking about criminal acts by the President of the United States, Barack Obama, at that point, as well as criminal acts by then Secretary of State Hilary Clinton. There is no way that they can get out of what has been revealed. Now, we all know that there's no way that Barack Obama or Hilary Clinton or any of these guys are going to get prosecuted. It's just not going to happen. Barack Obama is going to do the same thing that Nixon did at the beginning, which is deny that he had any involvement, didn't know what his staff was doing. And I do not think that there's going to be enough of a smoking gun like videotapes within the Oval Office that recorded those conversations to where Barack Obama could be absolutely incriminated. And even if there were a few that were slightly damning, I still don't think he'd ever be brought up on charges. It just kind of shows the two-tiered system we have in the justice system, where just former presidents are not going to get prosecuted, and just the power that they have. Now, we got to take this conversation way back to 2016 when Hilary Clinton was running against Donald Trump and what they wanted to have happen. Now, obviously, Obama is ending his 8-year term, and Hillary Clinton is the crowned new president of the United States. They have zero concerns that she's going to win the election. At this point, they had just started into figuring out how to rig elections, and I do mean rig elections. We all know that the 2020 election was stolen from Donald Trump, and they had attempted to do that in 2016, but not at the scale that we saw in 2020. Now, many people still say that that is a conspiracy theory, but we know it's just not a conspiracy theory. There's too many things around that prove that election was stolen. And I'm not going to get into the vast details of how that happened. We could get that into a later session. But the initial things that they had in place were already taking effect in 2016. So that they were doing ballot dumping. They had obviously dead people voting and a lot of other fraudulent votes going in to where they knew for a fact that Hilary Clinton was going to win that election and not Donald Trump. That was the goal. That was the plan. Now, we've always stated that no matter what happens, the Democrats want absolute power. No matter the cost, no matter the means, they want the power and they want to keep that power. We've discussed that through our immigration videos that we've done, that they're trying to import those voters, whether that be through a census and keeping power within the Congress, or figuring out a way to have illegals have a path to citizenship so they can vote, whether it's stealing elections. They want power no matter what the means, because they feel that no matter what they do, that the ends justify the means. They do not want to have Republicans in office. They do not believe in conservatism. They do not believe that people should have the freedoms, the absolute freedoms that we have, and that the country would be served better going more socialistic, more communistic. And they have an absolute belief of that they are better, know more, are smarter, and can tell everybody what to do. I mean, that, in the end, is what's justifying their thought process, is they want absolute power, and their beliefs are justifying that. How they believe, what they believe, in their minds are justifying the evil within their hearts of having absolute power. So with that in mind, there is nothing that they're not willing to do to keep and hold on to that power. The only thing that is limiting what they're doing is the American people and them getting caught red-handed like what happened in Watergate. So there's certain limitations to what they're trying to do, but mentally they're willing to do anything that it takes. So again, the only thing holding them back is the public, getting that word out that they're circumventing the Constitution, that they're rigging elections, that they're trying to do coups. Those are the only thing limiting their decision-making process. So as we go into the 2016 election, Hillary Clinton is doing everything that she can to make sure that she is guaranteed to win that election. We know there's already semblances of voter fraud that they're starting to put in place, and that evidence can be proven. But she's also trying to stir the pot publicly and through the news that Donald Trump should not be the president. So she starts trying to defame Donald Trump in any way possible. And the main scheme that she comes up with is the dossier, the fake Russian dossier that she puts together to discredit Donald Trump in saying that he is colluding with Russia, or Russia's colluding with him to steal the 2016 election. And as we know, Democrats always accuse the other side of doing what they are already doing. So while Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State, one of the main things that happened was this. It's called the Uranium One deal. And it's where the United States has a strict law that uranium cannot be exported. It's the primary ingredient in making atomic bombs, nuclear bombs, and so that it is not allowed to be exported at all. Russia wants to buy uranium from this company that is called Uranium One. Now, Uranium One only gets part of their uranium within the boundaries of the United States, and a lot of it is from other countries. But it doesn't matter where the uranium comes from. There's a law that uranium cannot be sold to an enemy, which Russia is considered. Now, Russia was putting together certain bribes to bribe Hilary Clinton into making sure the Obama administration allowed the Uranium One purchase to go through so that Russia could have control of that company and get that uranium. This is what compromised Hilary Clinton, and they tried to keep it under wraps, keep it a secret, but as we all know, the Uranium One came out. That deal, that scandal, what we call it, came out. So all this occurs in 2013 when Rosatom tries to purchase the Canadian company Uranium One. Now, how that was done was through a whole bunch of charitable donations done to the Hillary Clinton charities and the Clinton Foundation. And we know that Bill Clinton had been getting paid a lot for speaking, a lot more than he should have. Hillary Clinton was paid well over $500,000 for a speaking engagement in Russia. And there's a whole bunch of other ways in which they could wash and clean the money and launder the money, essentially, and get that money into the Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton coffers. It is easily demonstrable that the Clintons went into office with only a few $100,000 in their bank account and then came out almost with $100 million, or their net worth almost being $100 million. So there's a lot of this sneaky stuff going on throughout the Clinton administration, and then a lot of it going on afterwards, and then even more going on as Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State. So there's a lot more than just the Uranium One bribe. And since the Clintons were known for accepting these things, Russia did not think it was going to be a problem that if they spiffed her here and there a little bit, that she would allow the Uranium One deal to go through and they would have access to that uranium. Obama knew about what was going on, even though it was Hillary's deal that she was trying to, or that Russia was trying to get her to pressure him to allow the deal going through. Obama had other things in mind. Him and Hillary were not necessarily friends. They were associates, but not necessarily friends. And he wanted a way to be able to blackmail Hillary and make sure that the Clintons stayed under his control, so that when she did get into office, he could manipulate her and control her as his third term in office. I mean, that has always been Obama's thing, is that he wants to keep that power. And Obama knows that he can only be elected into office twice and cannot hold on to that power. So in the back of his mind, he's thinking, well, how do I gain and keep that additional power? And that's through manipulating Hillary Clinton. And there's a lot of other powers that be, big money people, that also want to manipulate her to make sure that she did what they wanted to, that she basically fulfilled with their bidding during her presidency. So as they were going into that 2016 election, they were giving her the money to get elected. They're helping with the voter fraud that was already starting to happen during 2016. They're already starting to put the funds to discredit Donald Trump during that 2016 election. But they did it in a very, very small way, where they thought they were doing just enough to guarantee that she was going to be elected. What they miscalculated was how popular Donald Trump was going to be at that time, and the amount of voters that he was going to have, that even with that voter fraud that she had, he far surpassed that with his popularity and still got into office, which shocked them all. That night when Donald Trump was announced, you saw it throughout the news media, you saw it on Hillary Clinton's faces, on even Obama's face, that they were honestly shocked that he won. And it was not necessarily shock that everybody would experience one looking at election. They had to behind the scenes information where they knew that that should not have happened, that he should not have been elected. They had things in place. They had paid for things to be in place where she should have been a guarantee. And part of that guarantee was Obama knowing that he'd have somebody that he could control. He would have a puppet in office that he would be able to control. And since Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton were so corrupt, it was not hard for them to have something on her that would blackmail her and basically bring her under control. So I'm going to play this video by Patrick Byrne, who was the owner of Overstock.com, and he had also worked with the federal government on several instances. And he demonstrates and proves that this was the plan, that Hillary Clinton was guaranteed to win. Russia thought she was going to win. The whole administration, the Obama administration, knew that she was going to win, that should not have been a doubt, and then that they would have enough on her that she could be controlled during her administration. So let's play this video real quick.
Why they did not, I know what's in the Durham report, and I'm going to say it here. I bribed Hillary Clinton $18 million. I facilitated a bribe for Hillary Clinton on January 14th, 2016, right here in this town. On behalf of the FBI, they came to me around December 1st, 2015. They told me Hillary Clinton had accepted a bribe from Turkey for $20 million. They told me that I would be working for a group in New York, FBI agents, who had authorization to set Hillary Clinton up in a sting. They asked me to facilitate a bribe for her, an $18 million bribe from another government. The bag man from that other government was, I was to befriend, and I was to get that person 10 minutes alone in a room with Hillary Clinton. I did. On January 14th, 2016, Hillary Clinton was in this town, and she met in a way that was kept off her schedule. She accepted an $18 million bribe. But General Barr knows this. This is the Durham. They know this was what is behind it all. And I'll even tell you, I'm going to drop one more thing. I've been waiting to say this publicly, and this is what really happened. I will tell you, if you hear this and you give me 90 seconds, your viewers will understand what's happened in the last 5 years in America. I've been waiting to say this on mainstream TV, and they will not have me back because once they understood what this was about. I had Hillary Clinton, I caused Hillary Clinton, I facilitated a bribe, and she took a second bribe for $18 million. And I worked with the FBI as I did that. They're deeply involved in this. They came to me 3 days later and told me I had to forget about it and forget that it ever happened. And I said, what are you talking about? And they gave me one excuse. They said, Hillary's going to win, and it's been determined, it's been decided upstairs, nothing's going to be able to stop that now. So she's going to win, and she's going to send her people over to the FBI and ask who was part of investigating Hillary, and any of us who were part of it are going to be destroyed, and that includes you too, Patrick. And so this mission has been scrubbed from the highest level. And I thought about that, and I said, yes, sir, and I came, but 2 or 3 weeks later, I was back with 3 federal agents this time. 3 federal agents, and I let them know that wasn't sitting, and this is in Salt Lake City, Utah, and that wasn't sitting well with me, and I'd like to know why we had almost a year before the election. They could have had me and another person in front of a grand jury in a week and gotten her indicted. And they told me, and this is the key to understanding what's happened in America. They told me, this is word for word, Patrick, what's really going on is this. President Obama has his people across the federal bureaucracy at this point, but especially the Department of Justice. Hillary Clinton is going to be president for 8 years, and nothing's going to change that. But think of there being a Bunsen burner within the Department of Justice. That evidence about the 2 bribes you were part of gathering is going to be sitting on the Bunsen burner. And the hand on the Bunsen burner is going to be one of Barack Obama's people. If Hillary's a good girl and defends Obamacare, that flame stays low. If she's a bad girl and thinks for herself, it's going to get turned up high. That way, Barack Obama is going to manage Hillary Clinton for the 8 years she's president, and then she's going to step down, and Michelle's going to run. And Patrick, that's the plan. That came out of the lips of a federal agent. It was confirmed to me this spring. The Durham investigation that plan was called the Operation Snow Globe. That was Brennan Obama's name for it. Snow Globe, they were trying to get Hillary to step into a snow globe. I'm looking for a prop. A snow globe that anytime they wanted, they could then pick up and shake for 8 years. My bribe was the bait to get her to step into the snow globe. That's all from it. This isn't a theory. I'm the guy in the room. I'm acknowledging I took part in all this, and I thought I was helping them conduct federal law enforcement. It turned out that I was helping them set up Hillary Clinton for a deep state to control her. And that's why, and I came in public a year ago with some pictures that showed me with this Russian redhead, Maria Butina, lovely woman, that said, and so I'm saying this entire thing, this last 5 years, has been a coup. It was from Obama against Hillary, that when Trump won in a fluke, it got morphed into the Russian collusion delusion. And I say that as the guy they had romancing Maria and bribing Hillary Clinton. So I'm about as involved in this as you can get, and I promise you that's exactly what happened. And what we're seeing here is the last act play out. I was the last act play out. And the reason I mentioned that I knew in October 2018 that this was going to happen was because in 2018 I was offered, a federal agent came to tell me, Patrick, you need to understand there are billionaires walking around this world that we made, and we're prepared to do the same for you. You just have to stay calm. You just have to stay quiet through the election. And by that election, I knew he meant 2020 election. So I've known that they were going to hijack this election since October of 2018.
So we can see from that the whole goal was to get something on Hillary Clinton. Obviously, they're talking about a $20 million bribe that she had taken from Turkey. They're trying to get her to do another bribe. This one is probably going to be recorded, so they actually have the whole transaction on video, which would be much, much more incriminating and easier for them to blackmail her, to have that on film. They probably have many other records of her taking bribes from other people, because this is probably not a first-time event. And between her, the foundation, and the charities that her and Bill did, there's plenty of instances where they're taking bribes or payoffs or trading benefits, all that. And kind of, where have we heard that before? So the same thing happens when we get to the Biden administration. We're going to discuss that in a minute. But here at this point, Hillary Clinton was supposedly guaranteed to get into office, and then they'd have something over her head in which to manipulate her and have that continuous control. Obviously, that did not work. Trump gets into office. They're absolutely shocked for the next 4 years. And then that's where they turn from doing the Russia thing to what Tulsi Gabbard just divulged in her briefing, where Obama takes over and says, Hillary, good effort, but you're playing minor league. Let's let the major league guy take over, because he wants to guarantee that she gets in office. I mean, he's got a heavy incentive to make sure she gets in, because the entire goal, all of his plans that he's had in the works, all depend on her getting in office so he could have that third term. So now that he's taking over, he creates the other information that Tulsi is talking about here, and let's listen to her clip real quick just so we can see what happens there.
Director Gabbard, this one is for you. Do you believe that any of this new information implicates former President Obama in criminal behavior?
We have referred and will continue to refer all of these documents to the Department of Justice and the FBI to investigate the criminal implications of this.
For even former President Obama?
Correct. The evidence that we have found and that we have released directly point to President Obama leading the manufacturing of this intelligence assessment. There are multiple pieces of evidence and intelligence that confirm that fact.
Ed, go ahead.
Director Gabbard, thank you. So just to...
I dare you to let me build you a completely free e-commerce store, preloaded.
Two questions, but to begin on that. The president yesterday, you've inferred that the former president helped lead a coup. Based on what you now see, do you believe President Obama is guilty of treason?
I'm leaving the criminal charges to the Department of Justice. I am not an attorney, but as I've said previously, when you look at the intent, behind creating a fake manufactured intelligence document that directly contradicts multiple assessments that were created by the intelligence community, the expressed intent and what followed afterward can only be described as a years-long coup and a treasonous conspiracy against the American people, our republic, and an attempt to undermine President Trump's administration.
So we're not going to play the entire news briefing there, but at the very, very beginning of it, she obviously comes out with the 200 pages they had just released and declassified, and everybody can go out and look at those documentation. But it shows that Obama, after the dossier came out, and when they're trying to put out an additional security report trying to back that up, that Obama said, do not publish that yet. Let's discuss this. So he pulls Hilary Clinton in, he pulls in John Brennan, he pulls in Comey and a few others into the Oval Office, and they discuss what they're going to do to tie Trump to Russia collusion, that he is specifically working with Putin to win the election. And what Tulsi explained here is that Putin wanted to sow distrust in the American election system with the American people. And he did not care if it was Hillary or Trump that won. He was just specifically trying to sow distrust. And then he held back incriminating information that could have blackmailed Hilary Clinton as well, but he was not going to release that until after she got into office to further discredit our system. He wanted our system to fail, and he doesn't care who's president at the time when he's trying to discredit the system. The other thing she comes out with is that Hillary Clinton has certain mental issues, where she is on heavy tranquilizers because of her temper and the way that she reacts with her staff members and others. So all that is very, very incriminating on Hillary Clinton and others. But it shows that Obama specifically was trying to control the narrative, trying to control the situation, and ensure that she got into office. And when he saw that what she was doing on her own was not working sufficiently enough, he said, well, let the adults come into the room and let the big boys work on this and see if we can't salvage this and make sure that you get into office. Because then he could have come out with everything that he had against her and essentially blackmail her and have the puppet in the presidential office that he wanted. Now, we all know that that didn't work, so Trump gets into office, and they spend another year trying to impeach him. They impeach him twice. Adam Schiff comes into the picture, and we know how fake that was, because everything in there was fake, and yet he would still come out in public and say, I cannot disclose to you what I know, but we have significantly damning information that proves that he's been colluding with Russia. And this Russia hoax went on for a full year with these private meetings with Adam Schiff in the basement of the Capitol building. Some instances where they wouldn't even let Republicans even into the room, and they had private meetings. This was a concerted effort to have a coup on a sitting president and to take him out. And it all came from Obama. It started with Hillary, and then Obama masterminded the rest of it. They wanted him out as quickly as possible. If they could have couped him, yes, they might have had a vice president in there, but they were trying to delegitimize his entire presidency so that they could have more control. But most importantly, the reason why they are trying to get him out of office is because the amount of information that he was going to have access to that they did not want coming out. All the information about what Obama did, everything that Hillary did, they had to make sure that the FBI, the intelligence agencies, nobody got to this paperwork, and it all remained hidden. Now, right during the middle of Trump's office, we have COVID that come out. And I think that was also planned to have that come out at that time to distract anybody within the administration from looking deeper into things. It would kept them busy on a false disease that was contrived by the government itself. Now, I personally have significant relationships with China. In fact, I manufacture a lot of things over there, and one of my manufacturers is actually just a block away from the Wuhan lab. So I had, during COVID, some inside information as to what exactly was going on over there. We know that Dr. Fauci and the Wuhan lab had the vaccine to COVID long before COVID was released. The whole purpose behind releasing the disease into the public, it was to make the vaccine legal. Since it was an RNA-based vaccine, there was no way that the FDA or any European nation was going to approve that vaccine through normal processes of approval. So they had to release the virus and get approval under emergency measures. So that is a whole different discussion, but it played into discrediting and Trump and making sure the administration stayed sufficiently busy that none of this information were to come out. So their entire goal of Obama and Clinton's and everybody else involved in that administration was to keep the Trump administration busy enough that this information were not to come out. They still had enough deep state within the first Trump administration, and Donald Trump during that first administration was still kind of naive going into the presidency on who to trust and who not to trust. So he really did not have a lot of really good people around him. And he still had faultily trusting the wrong people, but he really didn't know any better at the time and was trying to do the best that he could with what he knew at the time. Going into the 2020 election, now the Obamas, the Clintons, and others wanted to absolutely guarantee that there was no way that Trump could have that second term. They were not going to allow what happened in 2016 to happen again. So that's when the stealing the election and the fraud that happened in 2020 really got bold, because they wanted to make sure that nothing would happen that would impede Biden from getting into office. They saw the power that he had, the popularity he had during 2016, and the amount of voters that came out in droves for him. Then they knew they had to far surpass what they had done during 2016. And as the 2020 election proceeded, they saw his popularity increasing, not decreasing. No matter what they did, no matter about the Russia hoax, no matter the popularity, impopularity of COVID and how he handled that, nothing was dissuading the populace from not voting for him. All the polls were swayed towards him, as much as they tried to publicly have false polls going out there. Everything showed that his popularity was increasing, not decreasing amongst the populace. And so they started off with a certain amount of fraud, and they knew they still, towards the end of that election campaign, had to increase it. Now, when you go into those videos, you'll see the middle of the night voter dumps, the ballot dumps. You see going after midnight where Biden was way below Trump, and then all of a sudden there's a spike around 1 a.m. to where all of a sudden all these ballots came in. You see countless numbers of images of people dumping in mail-in ballots throughout the country. You see what happened down in Atlanta. You see the fraud that's we now know is significant fraud coming out of Arizona and many other states where everybody knows that Biden should not have been president, but there's no overturning it after that point once he's in office. But that election was stolen specifically because of what happened in 2016 and the fraud and the coup that they tried to commit in getting Hillary in, and what was discussed in that video that we had just showed you with the owner of Overstock. So trying to hide that has been the whole goal, and trying to remain in power has been the whole goal. Now, because Biden got into office, Obama got what he wanted with Hillary, which is a puppet in office that he could control. Now, his mental issues kind of played into what Obama needed, so he really didn't need much to blackmail him. Although they did have everything in place to blackmail Biden as well, as we saw with the Hunter Biden laptop, what we saw happen in Ukraine, and the other bribes that he had been taking, which is the playbook for what was happening with Hillary. So Obama, whoever was in power, had already put a lot of things in place to where Biden was taking those bribes during the Obama administration. Obama knew what he was doing and knew that he'd have some assets there as well, and it's all about the control. So as Biden ran for office, Obama already knew that he had what he needed in place to be able to control Biden. All he needed was to steal the election, make sure he got into office, and then he could control the narrative. The problem is coming into the 2024 election, Biden just didn't have the capacity to run again, and everybody knew that. He was not going to be able to go to that second term, and that was going to crush Obama's goals of being able to have that control in the office. Now, we see throughout the Biden administration that for the big major decisions, he obviously wasn't running the show, and that's where Obama would kind of put his fingers in and just kind of control international relations, their policies, all the major things. Obama was controlling that from the outskirts. Now, the immediate here and now decisions, we all know that, and that's come out with certain people that have been fundraising for them, have come out publicly saying that Jill Biden was kind of making a lot of those day-to-day decisions because she knew that her husband just didn't have the capacity there. Then we also have a lot of staffers that knew that Biden could not make decisions, and they're just running amok with their own agendas. So you've got three different groups of people kind of controlling the Biden administration. You have Obama from the top controlling the big decisions and the major things that were going on. You had Jill Biden trying to control the day-to-day discussions and operations that were happening within the White House, because obviously Obama wasn't there to control that. And then you've got staffers, probably 20-year-old some odd staffers, very liberal, very woke, just saying, hey, let's just do what we want to do, and started throwing a bunch of stuff in as well. And that's where you get a lot of this auto pen that was happening, a lot of these policies that were signed, executive orders that were signed, then even a lot of the pardons that went out were all done because of these staffers. Now, as we get towards the end of the Biden administration, and they figure out that he cannot run for that second administration, they are kind of between a rock and a hard place, because who can they put up front to run against Trump that would not cause a scandal? And it was the scandal that they were trying to prevent, not necessarily put up a person that would actually be able to do the position. They didn't care about the skill set of the person they're putting up there to run, because they knew that from behind the scenes, they would just continue to control everything. They just needed somebody that could win. But the only person they could have that could possibly win and not cause a scandal was Kamala. But Kamala was very, very weak. And so, again, they did everything they could to get her into office. Obama went out there and started campaigning for her. Hilary Clinton was doing speeches and not necessarily going on the campaign trail because she didn't have a good name. Most people are in their minds that Hillary's already history. They had a lot of narrative being controlled by the media, again, about Trump and the Russia thing. It was all hands on deck trying to make sure that Trump was not going to be able to get into office that second time. The benefit that Trump had is now he's coming into this with a different mindset, a different perspective, and a lot more knowledge from his first term. So me personally, I'm kind of appreciative that he did not win that second term when Biden came in office, because we would not have the benefits that we're experiencing now and the good people that we have in those administrative offices that we have now if he would have won back to back, because he would not have had that time to turn around and think and look back and find out who did I trust I should not been trusting, who are the deep staters, what people should I have had in office, and what decisions should I have made. So Trump actually had 4 years to be able to kind of really take apart and pick apart his first administration, find out what worked well and what did not work well, and who he could have trusted and should have trusted and who he should not have trusted, which was a lot of people. So we as the American citizen, we reaped a pretty significant amount of benefits for Trump not having won back-to-back administrations. Obviously, we had to tolerate Biden administration and the fiasco that was, but we're coming out significantly farther ahead because of the learning process that Trump went through not having back-to-back administrations. But going back to our point, the 2024 election, they could not put the kind of fraud into that election as they did in 2020 because it was all out. Everything they had done was all out, and if they tried anything like that again, it would have completely divulged everything they had done in the 2020 election, and so they had to be incredibly careful. Everything that they pulled off in the 2020 election could not be done in the 2024 election, or else they would have been completely exposed. So learning from what they did in 2020, there were certain things that they tried to do and certain other things they just couldn't do. But the biggest problem they had going into 2024 was Kamala was just not electable. She just couldn't talk straight. She couldn't hold a conversation without a teleprompter. She had a ridiculous laugh, and she also had an equal temper to that of Hilary Clinton, to where she was just yelling at staff members, and that information was starting to come out that she just did not have the demeanor to be able to even be in that office. Even Secret Service agents were coming out and saying what kind of temper that she had and her volatility mentally. So neither Kamala nor Biden were electable, and Trump's popularity was still increasing in phenomenal fashion, which again just shocked the other side completely as how popular he was becoming, because people were seeing that the Democrats were just not doing anything to help them at all. And everybody had the ability to look back and see a first Trump administration and know what he was or was not going to do. So no matter the false narratives that were put out there, we still had a comparison to be able to see exactly what he did in the first administration, and that he did fulfill with everything that he promised every single time. That was the one thing that Trump did well, is he always fulfilled with his campaign promises and always did the best he could to come through on those. So just for the fact that he fulfilled on things, people began to trust that more. And even if they didn't support all of his ideas, they did trust the fact that he would do exactly what he said he would do. And that pulled a lot of Democrats, a lot of the middle-of-the-road people, a lot of the swing state people over to his campaign, because at minimum they knew that they could trust him to do what he said he was going to do. So he comes through the 2024 election and just wins with that landslide red wave victory. And there was no way that the Obama side could stop that from happening, or the Clinton side, or the Kamala side, or the Biden side. There's just no way they could stop that wave. They had nothing in the bag. They had nobody else to put forward. And even if they tried to put somebody else forward, it would just cause a scandal of sidelining Biden and Kamala and then not going through a primary. They did not want to go through a primary because they did not want to have someone win a primary that they did not have their finger on, that they could not control. and they could control Kamala, they could control Biden. There was nobody else that they could physically have their finger on control in the next administration. And that's what tipped the scale in that 2024 election. And the fact that they did not go through a primary, but Kamala was essentially anointed to that position. So now we get to what we're going through and what's being exposed now. So now, because the learning process that Trump went through in his first administration, he actually is able to put the right people in offices. And that's how we get Tulsi Gabbard. That's how we get Marco Rubio as Secretary of State. That's how we get Kash Patel in there. That's how we get Dan Bongino in there and all these other excellent people into those positions because of what Trump learned the first administration, had a break to be able to really think that over and not keep those deep staters. If he would have been automatically elected again, I don't think he would have been near as powerful and been able to accomplish as much as he's been able to accomplish now because of that ability to learn from his mistakes there and who to trust and who not to trust, and then get the most powerful A team that is in there. That Avenger team that we have in there right now would not have been possible if he would have won back-to-back elections. So in part of this, what the fraud that Obama and Clinton tried to do and Biden tried to do in that 2020 election actually helped us in the long run to get to where we are now. And in the first 6 months of the Trump administration, he has been able to do more than the last 40 years of presidents, even more than even Reagan was even accomplished, and that was quite a bit because of just the sheer staff that he's been able to put in there and the sheer numbers that he won with. The numbers were the most important thing because he not only won the Electoral College, but he won the popularity vote, which has never been done in a significant amount of time. That mandate has really given him the power to be able to go in there unabated and just kind of do whatever he wants policy-wise. Not only that, but winning both the House and the Senate and having control of the Supreme Court has given him just insurmountable power in being able to get his policies pushed through, which is benefiting all of us, and we're not going to go through that, but that's why we're seeing what we're seeing. But because he's been able to put such good people into place, like a Tulsi Gabbard, which he did not have before, the past DNI director and the CIA director and the FBI directors were still deep staters and still not completely on board with the Obama MAGA type of a movement where they would have not divulged information like this. This type of information would have not have come out with the people Trump had as staff members and as directors and as cabinet members within that first administration. So we kind of have to think what happened during 2020 and putting Biden in office for the benefits that we're experiencing now. And now that we do have a Tulsi Gabbard in there, everything that Obama was and Clinton has been trying to cover up since they lost the 2016 election is now coming out in public. Now, again, like I said, Obama's never going to be indicted on this. He's never going to even be prosecuted or even have anything happen to him. Neither is Clinton. Now, you might see Brennan or Comey come up with charges and they might go to prison, but there's always going to be a fall guy. Going back to Watergate, when Nixon started denying that, there were certain people within his administration who were taking the fall for that and going to end up serving prison time. That's what's going to happen here. They're just not going to face the music. They're not going to face that. So we need to understand that in the end, as all this information comes out, there's going to be certain people that are going to be heavily, heavily guilty of all this and have been guilty of all this since the Obama administration. They're never going to get anything happen to them. But the most important thing we need to recognize and remember is that the Democrat side, and I'd hate to put them all into one lump sum, but you can see it in every corner that we turn on how hard they've pushed against Trump and trying to get him impeached, how hard they've tried to push against everything that he's done. If he does it, they're against it. Doesn't matter if it's good for the country or not. If he's doing it, they're against it. From the fires in California to the fires in Hawaii to what he's doing with dismantling USAID, to dismantling the Department of Education, to trying to do everything that Doge did and getting rid of their deep state money. Because as we've said in previous podcasts, it doesn't matter if the Democrats didn't have the presidency, or if they didn't have the Senate, if they didn't have congressional authority, they always had their backup, which was they had deep state funds coming from USAID, Department of Education, Department of Defense, where they had enough deep state employees or operatives that could manipulate that money around, that they could still get policies done that they wanted to get done without any congressional authority, without any presidential authority, and by just simply using deep state money pushed around by these agencies, kickbacks from other countries where the USAID was going, because as we said before, those funds would go out to these fake programs throughout the world and throughout the country. Maybe a fraction, 10, 15% of that money would be used on those programs themselves. High salaries would be given to those people running it, which is essentially payoffs to keep quiet. And then the rest of that money would come back and find itself in campaign coffers, in private investments, in foreign investments that would help these other politicians stay in power, be manipulated how they want to manipulate it. It's just how it works. So again, when you have the deep state manipulating policies and enacting regulations, which is how they did it, was through policies and regulations through all these branches of government, the Democrats could still get a lot of what they wanted done, whether it was LGBTQ stuff, whether it was climate change policies, whether it was foreign affairs policies, whatever it was, they could still get a lot of those programs done in foreign countries, anywhere they wanted, because they could move that money anywhere they wanted it to go. And they had deep state employees or operatives that would enact all those policies, orders, or requirements that the Democrat side ever wanted to do. But now you've got President Trump that not only has the presidency, has Congress, both the Senate and the House, has the Supreme Court, and now that he's getting rid of the deep state, dismantling their coffers, their money, they are freaking out. So it is where they've gone from being able to control everything to everything is being completely dismantled because of him getting into office. And so their power is just dissipating very, very, very quickly. You can see them pushing illegal immigration so they can get some of that power back. You can see them trying to enact lawsuits through all these activist judges trying to stop these policies and trying to keep some semblance of power with their judges that are trying to do national injunctions on everybody. Everything they can to keep that power. So I go back to my initial point. There's nothing that Democrats are not willing to do to stay in power, keep power, and to control everything. The end always justifies the means. They don't care who they hurt, what money they have to spend, what laws they have to break. As long as they can get away with it, they are willing to do it. Period. End of story. They are willing to do it. From what Hillary was doing, the fake dossier and everything that she was doing, to Obama taking over and increasing that fraud and that coup that he was doing, to everything they did during the Biden administration, to everything they're trying to do now to stop all the Trump initiatives. We have to be careful in the future on this next election that they're going to try similar things again, because they have to get back into power. We see what's going on in New York with the socialist mayor trying to get into power. We see that AOC is getting a lot of popularity with her socialistic ideas, and we can see where the Democrats are trying to go. They're trying to go more socialistic, more communistic, and it's not necessarily that they care about socialism or communism. They care that socialism and communism gives the state unlimited power to where they can stay in power forever. It's always, always about the power and the money and the influence and whatever they have to do to keep that and hold on to that. So I hope you can see the pattern here from 2016 to now. It has been one big story of fraud, trying to defraud the American people and trying to usurp power and keep Trump out of office or anybody like him. Because if Trump hadn't run and there was Ted Cruz or somebody else in office, they'd still be doing the same things, just a different level of attack. Because it's the conservatism that they're going against, it's the freedoms that they're going against, and it's us, the American people, that they're trying to fight against. They want the U.S. to be like other countries within the world and have that control over this country. Because if they can control this country, they can control the world. And that's what it's about, is just control and power. So over the next few days, you guys are going to see a lot of stuff coming out of news media. A lot of other talk show people are going to be talking about this, from Tucker to Beck to everybody. Listen to those podcasts. But then understand that going deeper than a lot of them are probably willing to discuss, this was absolute coup. This was absolute fraud. This was lies upon lies upon lies to be able to keep them in power. And I wouldn't doubt that people died over this to keep these things quiet, things that we are not hearing about or even knowing about, which goes to the Epstein thing. Now, Epstein may not have any significance here or there except for the kids that he was molesting, but it goes to the trust factor that we, the American people, have in the government, which is not, we do not have a big trust factor in the government. And although what Trump is doing is building that trust and his staff is building that trust, we need to make sure that remains there. And simple things like the Epstein case does not corrode or kill the trust that's being built up right now, because that could very, very easily do that, which would harm our ability to have good elections coming up in 2028 and get somebody like a J.D. Vance into office. So everything that we can do to make sure that that trust is not corrupted by a stupid case like the Epsteins or anything else like that, and we keep in the back of our minds always, and don't forget the history, don't forget the past, because we, for some reason, have very, very, very short memories, and we just don't remember past the last 2 years. We have to remember coming up now, the midterms, 2028, what the Democrat Party has done and what operatives on that side have done to try to stay in power, from the Obamas to the Clintons to the Bidons and everybody that's been operating with them, what they've been doing to try to take over, literally take over this country and essentially dismantle this country. Because if any of us was absolutely 100% out in the open to where it's just absolutely undeniable, it would fracture our trust in the Constitution and completely divide this country into factions. And it could literally just destroy us like Rome fell. So spread the information and just remember the past. Remember what has happened and make sure your friends, those other voters that are around you, remember what has happened in 2016, what happened in 2020, so that these things do not repeat. Because if we do not remember the past, we're going to be doomed to repeat it every single time. And the farther we get into technology, the shorter our memories seem to be. The more we have a 24-hour news cycle, the shorter our memories tend to be. Because all we remember is what's in the news cycle that day or that week. We have to remember what's happened. Trump is doing phenomenal things right now. Phenomenal things in everything he's doing. He's keeping every campaign promise and even more with what he's doing. We just have to back that up. We can't get sour taste in our mouth when it comes to the USAID funds. We can't get a sour taste in our mouth when it comes to immigration policies. We can't get a sour taste in our mouth because of the Epstein files. We have to continue that support, because in the end, what he's doing is for the best interest of our country and is helping us, our kids, our grandkids, for next generations. if that was to get destroyed, if that trust was to get destroyed, if we were to forget the good behind it and we start nitpicking every little thing and we just ignore all the good that has become of it, that's where fraudsters like what's happened the last 8 years between the Obamas and the Clintons will sneak in and push those in the middle, push those lukewarm people, those manipulative people in the middle to vote their way, and then we will start to lose those freedoms and those controls again. It will happen again. And it will swing to the other side, and it'll be worse every single time it swings, because they'll take a next step and a next step to making this country more socialistic, more communistic, to where we will absolutely lose the freedoms that we hold dear underneath our Constitution. We are under attack. And we have been under attack for years, and we don't even see it. We don't see it as an attack. We just see it as differing opinions. And it's not what it is. It's an absolute attack on our freedoms, on the Constitution, and what the United States stands for.